Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. It is Thursday, 8 o'clock. We always look forward to this because Sam Amick joins us from The Athletic. Sam, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Jay Ross. Doing great. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well as well. Good to see you at the last couple of games, and you saw some pretty entertaining basketball. Both games had some similarities to it over the last two nights. Just kind of, obviously, we're going to have more of a Kings lean here on our questions, but your thoughts on really what turned out to be a very entertaining 2 nights of basketball.
Yeah, no, it was for sure. It's funny, the mirror image component of the two games was wild with the Kings 2 nights ago going up 20 and blowing that lead and then coming back from that team. The Sabonis factor front and center, give him a lot of credit for playing through this injury and playing well and reminding people how important he is. And we kind of wrote this today with my colleague Anthony Slater at our place. It's just kind of an incredible, push that these guys, it's weird to say because it's still late December, but the West is so loaded and so with parity that it just feels like every game matters a lot, even this early as they try to push for the playoffs. And you could feel that last night. I mean, the crowd was unbelievable. And I was saying afterwards, it sounded like a legitimate playoff game by the time it was all said and done in terms of the energy level. And so, they needed that one pretty badly. They've obviously dropped some tough games lately, so that one was big.
Yeah, and it felt like, I go back to last Friday, Sam, when they not only lost to the Wizards. I mean, let's remember, they're down 30 in that game in their building, and I think the Wizards are better than their record. But, again, you're down 30 in a building that's become pretty tough to play, and late in that game is when Sabonis gets hurt. And, for that couple of days off through Christmas, there wasn't the certainty of his injury, and you read about the injury, and I'm reading about it going, man, if he has surgery, that's 7 to 8 weeks. I feel like all this equity could be gone, and instead he misses one night, comes back and has one of his best games of the season. That feels like such a swing for me, Sam, on where the season could have gone if he missed a substantial amount of time.
Yeah, and I think it's still, I agree with everything you said there. I would probably still caution a little bit that it's to be continued
Sure.
with him in his hand. It's funny because you can probably hear I'm a little wiped out today. I chose to stick around for Domas's post game.
Oh gosh,
last night.
Did it just end?
Yeah, exactly. He takes a while, but to hear him talk about it was interesting. He'd certainly, like any player, didn't want to get into too much detail about how much it hurt because they would rather that it makes it worse when people talk about it, especially because, on the court, you got guys that are going to try to come at you because they know that you're kind of a wounded animal. So he's going to keep pushing through it. We did report that, in terms of the plan B, if it had to go to that it's likely more of a 4 to 6 week timeline if he had the surgery, but that's just still an eternity for a team that, if they drop 3-4 games in a row right now would be out of playoff position. So, it's interesting to watch to say the least, because he has been caught up clearly in the energy of the moment. And he talked at length about, all the work that they did in the summer and the expectations. And he just obviously doesn't want to let this momentum slow down, not only for the team, but his AllStar campaign. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I was giving Dave a hard time about trying to bring Sabonis up in the MVP conversation, but he's had MVP caliber nights this year. He's been incredible. So, he doesn't want that to come to an end.
When you looked at, you brought up the parity of the West. I think it's great for the league. I think if you look at the very end of it, like the Spurs and Rockets, it's understandable why their record is kind of where it is. But from the other teams up, and I'll even include the Lakers, because I think when they're right, which hasn't been enough this year, that they could be a problem. Thunder have been a nice team. Right now, Minnesota's on the outside looking in, and then everyone else up. I don't know where the separation is. It feels like the Kings belong in that group, but like you said earlier, Sam, a bad week, you're out. A good week, you move up to 2 or 3. What do you think will start to separate, or will there eventually get separation really amongst that 10?
Health first and foremost, and I'm looking at the standings right now, and you've got, the Nuggets, it should be said, are dealing with some of their own stuff. No Aaron Gordon, no Jamal Murray last night. No Bruce Brown. You've got the Clippers, who are perpetually injured with their main, but they still are fourth in the West right now. The Suns lose Devin Booker for 4 weeks. The Warriors obviously dealing with Steph Curry being out, Andrew Wiggins being out. So injuries first and foremost, and then it's unfortunate, and I'm getting super, super greedy here on behalf of Kings fans. But if you think about the Charlotte loss and the Washington loss and some of the other ones, I mean, because it could have gone both ways right now, right? Like, they could very easily. I mean, there are 3 games in the loss column back from the Pelicans, who are on top of the West. So it's very, very feasible that they actually could have been, tops in the West right now, or second, somewhere right there. But that's how tight it is. And I think that group, for all intents and purposes, is 12 at the moment. For me, Anthony Davis being out means I've got the Lakers. I feel like they are unofficially done. The Timberwolves come to mind. Like, they are not done. They have underperformed. They have not played well. They've got some of their own injury stuff, obviously losing Karl Anthony Towns. But they're going to be at least part of that group of 12. So it's going to be from now until the end of the regular season. I joked with some Kings folks last night, was even asking their opinion, when you look up and you see that there's been a lot that's already happened this year, and it's probably somewhat exhausting because you're trying to break this playoff streak, and you look up and you realize that there's still 50 of these games left. Yeah. It seems like an absolute marathon, and there's just a very long way to go.
Sam Amick of The Athletic joining us. So just overall, I know there's, as you said, there's so many games left, but do the Kings have the look to you of a team that belongs in that playoff mix?
I mean, in the mix for sure. It has not been a good 10 days. Last night was very impressive, and you are hanging on by the skin of your teeth, or the skin of a broken thumb, if you will. Domas is a beast, and I give him credit. I've talked on the show early in the season where I did not have his individual ceiling as high as it clearly is, and his value, and I was focused on some of his defensive deficiencies, but he has played out of his mind. They could really use the early season version of De'Aaron Fox. Even though he scores 30 plus last night, 25 the night before. He's had good games, but it has not been the AllStar level, I don't think, consistently anyway, that it was early on. Malik Monk can be so explosive and so dynamic, but they just seem to. It's tricky for guys coming off the bench to do that night in, night out. But I think they need more consistency there. The backup bigs obviously are a bit of an issue. Once Domas goes off the floor, this is in our piece today. Their offensive rating is on par with what would be far and away the worst in the NBA offensively, once they don't have him as kind of the hub of what they do on that end. So even I think about Kevin Huerter, so good games, but early on he's out there shooting 54% from three. They need to be explosive offensively like they were at a historic level. And then obviously the defense has got to improve. So they have the talent, but the inconsistency continues to be a bit of an issue, I think.
I don't know if you know the answer to this. I asked someone yesterday this, but we've kind of gone through different versions of what clearly health and safety meant and what timelines were. Do you know what that is currently for the league? We know Coach Brown is out. He's in health and safety. Is there a set date return, or is it just a negative test? I don't even know where the league is with this right now.
I hate to admit it. It has fallen off my radar enough that I also don't know the exact ins and outs. The general sense in terms of Mike Brown had been that he wasn't the symptoms weren't all that bad, and he's doing just fine, and it seemed like it would be a pretty quick recovery time. And I'm blanking on what's the Kings schedule. They got Utah on Friday is the next game, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're one day away. I feel like we might see him out there. Not for sure, but I don't think it's going to be too much longer.
Sam, also just a kind of a bigger look back, a pull back to the league. Right now, we're in a stretch where we're seeing some individuals. I think just if we just do last night, Joker goes for 40. DeRozan was in the 40s. Giannis in the 40s. Zion in the 40s. We had Luka, that incredible night the other night, 60, 21, and 10. But I think, Booker's capable. Paul George, Ja, Curry, Durant, Beal. We have so many, Tatum, so many different people that can get to that 30, 40, even 50 range. How great is it right now, just the individual and even the parity of the league, to have all these high volume scorers right now?
Oh, it's great. I mean, Jay, just to give you a mild hard time, you just went through that entire list. And unless I missed it, I don't think you mentioned that guy in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, last night he had a 40. Yeah, you're right, though.
Yeah. 2-time MVP, one-time champion.
Right.
Yeah, the MVP race is drunk, if you will, as the kids like to say. And like somebody asked me last night, do you because I voted for Jokic the last couple of years, and they had said, you think it's him again, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like, again, 50 games to go, but there are tons of guys with legitimate cases at this point. You've got the Tatum candidacy. I find interesting because it's not a case. Devin Booker last year got some votes, with good reason, but he didn't seem like a real believable MVP candidate beyond the fact that he's a very, very good player who was on the best team in the West, best team in the league in the regular season. Tatum, but he doesn't have necessarily the two-way resume that Tatum has, and so that comes to mind with Jason. I think that you got Joel Embiid in there. It's incredible. It's fun to watch. I mean, the league's kind of star power, if you will, is on a really fantastic level. And most nights for most games, there's somebody that you enjoy watching play the game. So, no clue how it's going to end. I do find the Jokic candidacy, again, super interesting from the standpoint of, last couple of years, there was this idea that, the voter fatigue with him is, admittedly for me included, is tied to the fact that, that his team was not elite. And I still feel good about the vote last couple of years, but you do reach a point where you would like to see the MVP come from a guy whose team made some real noise in the playoffs. Well, now, because you got Jamal Murray back, because you got Michael Porter Jr. back, it's like, well, what if the Nuggets do win the West? Does that then, open the door for Jokic, who was having arguably a better season than he did the last 2 years, to win it again? We'll see, but a lot of guys in that mix for sure.
Yeah, I think even with all these guys playing well, I think I know it's not as important as MVP, but AllStar berths, and with so many people missing some games, I mean, there's going to be some tough decisions and some quality people left out of the mix here.
100%. And the AllStar thing, I say this every year, like most times, and this as well as anybody, like the team, a lot of the team media folks who understandably get kind of wrapped up in what their team's best players are doing, on the telecast, will sit there and talk about, oh, so-and-so is definitely an all-star. And it's like, but they don't slow down to play the game of musical chairs and realize how elite that group is, because people do, all-star caliber people get left out every single year. And that's definitely going to be the case this year. You're talking about, even in the West, to use that as an example, all that parity and the tightness of the standings that we've been talking about means that, like, the general idea that really if any team gets more than one all-star, then, that's going to end up having a domino effect on another one of those teams that's in the mix, whose guy ends up getting left out. So the Kings are a good example. Fox was the one early on who was kind of under, with good reason, put front and center as the all-star on the Kings. And I'd be shocked to see them get more than one. They should, they'd be ecstatic to get one. But right now, it's Sabonis. It's not Fox. It's Domas. So, we'll see where all that goes.
Absolutely. Well, Sam, it's been fun here lately. A fun night last night, like you said, great energy, playoff feel. We enjoy your stuff. We hope everybody checks out what you do at The Athletic, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.
Thank you, Jay.
All right. Thank you. That's the great Sam Amick. Again, check out all his work at The Athletic, as He continues to cover the league, cover the Kings, cover all these teams out there, and the Kings are a centerpiece. I mean, people need to talk about what they are doing. We're going to do that when we come back because we talk culture all the time in sports. We've been talking about the Kings culture. Well, I believe the Kings have finally found